welcome to the Trips Book Awards 2024. Whoa, 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 whoa. So I see a lot of people doing this year. Instead of having like a best books, worst books, it's actually like the book superlative awards type of situation, and that's exactly what this is. I made up the categories, I chose the nominees and the winners. It's just like my little award ceremony for the books I read. I thought this would be a better idea than what I did last year, because then I only get to talk about the books that I want to discuss at the end of the year. Although I do show the majority of the books that I have read in this year at like if they didn't win an award, they weren't nominated for an award, they are on like a slide towards the end of the award ceremony. This is a very long video, so I will have the award categories and timestamps in the description box, as well as all books listed that are discussed. If you're curious to know my opinion on anything that's listed, you know. Thank you very, very much for clicking on this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, that's it. Enjoy the video. Hello. Hello, every sluggy. Happy New Year? Not yet, but wait, maybe for some of you? Alright, how's it going? Today, I welcome you to the Trips Book Awards 2024. Whoa! I used a template for the first page. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so some of the awards are like legit awards. Some of them are just kind of silly, but they're all recommendations or unrecommendations from me from my year of reading in 2024. And so my reading stats. So it's not bad. I had a rating average of 3.7, which is good. It's actually pretty good, given that I read 46 books, 20 novels, 10 graphic novels, 11 audiobooks, and 5 visual novels. I'm counting visual novels from now on as part of my reading, because I don't literally read a 60-hour game that's literally actually just a book and not counted in my reading stats anymore. New year, new me. It is above average. Actually, my average was 3.7 last year too, but the difference is that I had 12 5-star books last year and I only have 6 this year. So to me, it feels like a less successful reading year. Like, I had a bunch of books, like I have 14 4-stars. I have a bunch of books that I liked, but not a ton of books that I absolutely loved and like rearranged the way that I think, and like it becomes part of my personality type of things. Not very many books like that. And at least I only had 2 1-star books. Sorry, I know my head's in the way. Hold on, let me make my head go away for the purposes of viewing this slide just for a second. That's my bad. I knew I would be in the way. My bad. Out of all of this is part of the problem, I think, with my reading this year, is that I read 29 fantasy books, 8 romance, 5 sci-fi, and 4 other, which is just like any of these other categories. And then these are my subcategories here. I like fantasy, but what I was picking up was just like not it for me. It just wasn't good. And I usually have more success with sci-fi, actually. So it's a little sad that I just didn't pick up more sci-fi, but I just didn't. It was like a completely mood reading year. I didn't have any direct goals. I didn't have any reading goals. It was just reading what I felt like, which is usually fine, but man, I don't know. It's like, it's hard because 3.7 is great, but because of the smaller amount of 5 stars, it felt less good. But I still have a lot of books to talk about. I still have a lot of good things to say about a lot of books, and I don't have as many bad things to say about bad books, I guess. So I guess overall it was a successful year. So the first award that I have to talk about is Best Cover. So as I'm going through all of the books that I read this year, I think you'd be like, wait, I like that cover more. There was a lot of really good covers this year. If anything, almost all the books I read could probably win in this category, because it's entirely subjective. But these were my 3 favorites. Moonbound by Robin Sloan, A Magical Girl Retires, and Curious Tides by Pascale Lacelle. These are great books. I'm going to talk about all of these later. Actually, I don't think I'm going to be talking about Curious Tides again, so I'll talk about Curious Tides now, briefly. But I will be talking about Moonbound and A Magical Girl Retires at a later point in time. These were all really nice. So actually, the main thing I want to say is that I don't own Curious Tides, but I know that, so all of like the parts that are white in this book are actually like a silver foil, which makes it really pretty. And I think even the blue parts are a foil too. It's just a very pretty book. I really like A Magical Girl Retires physical edition because it is a matte full cover, and even on the inside, it is like, I don't know, it's just really special. There are illustrations all throughout the book, which just kind of added to it. I know that's not part of the cover, but it all matches the same. It's the same artist who did the cover art. And for Moonbound is, I don't know, I just really like it. I just liked it. I think it covers what the book is really well, and I think the covers really stand out. Also the this part, the light green like background, whatever this is, like the border around the text is actually glow in the dark, which I thought was so cool. So that's why these are higher up on the list for me. But very quickly, Curious Tides is a book about Emery and her life post an extremely traumatic event that left a group of students dead, lost to the seas with herself as the only survivor. This book is also about Baz, the brother of Emery's best friend who was taken by the sea that night. The two then agree to go try to find the truth about what happened that night, and it also involves a really neat magic system based on the phases of the moon. If that sounds interesting to you, it's a dark academia type of book. I do recommend picking it up. I did like the book. And I like these other two as well, but I'm going to talk about them in a minute or two. So the winner of best cover for me was A Magical Girl Attire, specifically because it is a hardcover matte full cover, full color matte cover. So it's the soft cover. It feels really soft to the touch, and it's just really pretty. It's also a novella. 29-year-old in Seoul. She's jobless and she's drowning in credit card debt. She decides that she is going to off herself, but is stopped by a girl dressed in all white, and she claims to be a clairvoyant magical girl, and she says that the 29-year-old that she finds is actually the magical girl of time, and she is going to save the world. So she follows that girl into the world of magical girlhood. And it's a novella. It's short. If you're a millennial, you should read it, I think, because it really captures what it feels like to be a late 20s, early 30s something in this world. And it's a really, really pretty print copy if you can get your hands on it. That's my opinion. Okay, so we have best characters. This one was kind of hard to decide because I think I like a lot of the characters in a lot of the books, but I didn't like the plots as much. But I settled with The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty, Delicious in Dungeon or Dungeon Meshi by Ryoko, and The Nightmare Before Christmas by Saara Rash. I said Christmas. Kissmas! It's The Nightmare Before Kissmas! This book has really great characters. They're all middle-aged and they've all lived their life and they have very distinct personalities and they all stand out from one another. If you've watched the Dungeon Meshi anime adaptation, you probably already know all these characters are extremely distinct. They all have their own thing going for them. With the second season, it's going to get even more into that, and having completed this manga, I just think all the characters are just really great. And they stick out in my mind, they stick with me. And The Nightmare Before Christmas is a very, very silly book that I will be discussing later on. And all the characters are just very lovable and distinct and also roll around in my head from time to time. But the winner is... It's Dungeon Meshi. It's Delicious in Dungeon. So yeah, if you haven't watched one of the more popular anime adaptations this year, I'll tell you what it's about. Laios and his adventuring party are attacked by a red dragon and lose all of their possessions, and also Laios' sister Fallen. The group wants to immediately head back into the dungeon to save her, but the group doesn't have any money or food to prepare for their long journey back down the dungeon. So Laios introduces the idea of eating the monsters as we go, and well, that's exactly what happens. Yeah, all the characters are excellent in this series. I don't know who's my favorite. Maybe Senshi. Maybe Marcial. Maybe Laios. I don't know. I like everybody. I mean, yeah, Chilchuk's great too. Even the side characters. Some of the side characters are really great. I can't think of his name. I like the elf dude, bro. I can't think of his name right now though, so clearly he's not my favorite. So that's what wins. Dungeon Meshi wins. The next category is Best World Building. Now, I actually only have a Best World Building category because I really wanted to have a Worst World Building award. So, for Best World Building, I have Dungeon Meshi again, or Delicious in Dungeon, Moonbound by Robin Sloan, and One Piece, which is, well, One Piece. It's One Piece. I wrote notes for everything except for One Piece. I wrote, well, it's One Piece. Delicious in Dungeon is a full story that's just about 100 chapters of manga and tells an extremely beautiful, lush world where everything is interconnected and makes sense, and there's like reasons why you can eat certain parts of the monsters and not the other parts, and the way the magic system works and the way the dungeons work. It's really great world building, I think. Moonbound is kind of the same thing. I'll talk about it now. So Moonbound is set 13,000 years in the future on Earth. The story surrounds a young boy that is given a mission to save the world, attain glory, get the girl, etc., etc. But none of that happens because Ariel, the kid's name is Ariel, he comes across an ancient artifact that is a sentient, record-keeping artificial intelligence sourdough's yeast bacteria thing that attaches to Ariel's body and changes the course of his entire life. It's a super imaginative story that feels nostalgic and fresh at the same time. Yeah, I really like this book. I think this is the best of Robin Sloan's books to date. It's also his latest book. It is really, really imaginative. The world just takes like very classic fairy tale tropes and kind of spins it on its head in a more like technologically forward but still feels very magical and ancient way, and it was really masterfully done. I think some people will think the story is boring because it really focuses on like the more Tolkien-esque stuff, like the language of the world, or like the way that how the world has evolved and how that stuff works. But I thought that it was really interesting anyway. And One Piece is One Piece. When I was thinking about what the best world building was, I had to think about the current year of One Piece that released in 2024. And so it had to win. One Piece had to win because 2024 was the year where all of the world building that we know and learned about for the past 30 whatever years of One Piece, 25, 30, I don't remember how many, sorry. It all came to a head, and we all found out so much payoff of us paying attention to everything that Oda was dropping, everything that Oda was telling us. We didn't find out everything, but we found out so much about the world, and so much of the world building and the little blocks and pieces that Oda has put in place all lined up, and it gave us such a satisfying answer. So it just had to win for me. I also think I'm reading One Piece at the best time to read One Piece, since I started 2 years ago and I'm just caught up now. And like the first arc that I get to currently read, it was Egghead. Holy crap. So satisfying. I feel a little bad because I got to read it way faster than most readers did, I think. But it's just, Oda's just a genius. You're right, Don. Oda's just a genius. So yeah, One Piece wins. Not that I think the world building's bad in Dungeon Meshi or Moonbound, but it's One Piece, okay? Sorry. Obviously it's best. So worst world building, this is what I really wanted to talk about here. Worst world building contestants are The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Deya Muniz, Faebound by Saara El-Arifi, and Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. So in order, because even though I spoke about them in reverse, Immortal Longings, in like the order that they are from left to right, sorry. Immortal Longings is, so every year, the city of Sun Air essentially holds a murder competition, and whoever wins gets a ton of money. Those who have this world's special ability to jump between bodies, that's the special ability, is to be able to jump between consciousness and like shove your consciousness into another person and like body jack them. They get a huge advantage in this murder competition because they can just use other bodies to kill other players while the host body lives somewhere else. Also, the story is inspired by Antony and Cleopatra, where this world's Antony and Cleopatra are both entered into the citywide murder competition. But I have to say, it's just inspired by it. The plot is not at all like in the Shakespearean play. Just the characters, they're like obsessed with each other, like Antony and Cleopatra. Faebound, where do I start? Yiren, one of the main characters is named Yiren. She used to be a warrior in the Elven army and that was all good and great, but then she gets exiled for making she makes a fatal mistake at the beginning of the book. Her sister Lacelle, she's a diviner, and she seeks prophecies towards a better future. She ends up running after her sister after she gets exiled because she's pretty sure her sister's destined for like better things, or like this was like a horrible like transgression, like this shouldn't have happened type of thing. But one thing leads to another, and they encounter the Fae court. The fairies have not been seen in this world for a millennium now, but Yiren and Lacelle have to learn about their homeland, this new land that they're living in now, each other, etc. That's that. And then The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. So Lady Camembert wants to live a life on her own terms without marriage, or at least not married to a man. But the law of the land is that woman cannot inherit. So she disguises herself as a man, moves to the capital, and starts her life over in the capital. But disguises are not so easy to keep when you're falling in love with the princess of the kingdom. My main complaint about The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich is that everyone is named after cheese, and they act like cheese is a really big deal, but then cheese doesn't... It's not important enough to the plot, except for the fact that these two characters share a grilled cheese sandwich, and I don't know. It's a perfectly fine lesbian graphic novel, but it's ultimately not that good. Faebound has a lot of problems, like the characters just... like, there's the three races are the elves, the fae, and the humans. The humans are gone, apparently. The fae, they thought the fae were gone, but the fae were just, like, in hiding. And the elves are, like, the main race that live above ground and do all sorts of stuff. But the elves are so lame that I guess what bothered me with the world building is that the elves don't need to have the traits that we would normally anticipate from elves, but they need to be different than the fae and the humans. But the only thing that makes them different is that they're able to see the future. But the fact that they're able to see the future ruined the plot and all of the world building, because Lacelle would be giving out these prophecies, and then you would know exactly what's going to happen in the book because her prophecies are never wrong. And it just kind of ruined the book for me, personally. And so Immortal Longings, well... Immortal Longings is the winner. Because if you thought about this world building for more than 5 seconds, you realize it makes no goddamn sense. Neither do the other two, but this one makes the least sense. It's a great book cover. Don't get me wrong. But, oh my gosh. So, like, they have to constantly jump into other people's bodies, but they're also not allowed to murder people, but they need to murder people in the competition. But also... you can't kill someone directly, so you have to do it in another body. So you have to jump into another body, but you have to ensure that you have enough friends that are also not part of the competition to take care of your other body while you're not there. It's really it's so convoluted. It just doesn't actually make sense, and the twist ending was fun, but not enough for me to read the second book. It's entertaining enough if you turn your brain off, but once I thought about it, I was like, this makes no sense. These characters would have gotten murdered. The next book award I have to give is It Made Me Cry. And so I have One Piece, and I have The 7-Year Slip. We've already discussed One Piece. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston is a contemporary romance novel with a bit of magic in it. Clementine is living in her late aunt's apartment, making the most out of her book publicist job. Her aunt always told her that the apartment was magical, that it could transport you 7 years into the past, but only if you were in that apartment. Obviously, Clementine thinks this is just a tall tale until it actually happens to her, and she meets Ewan, a young man that stayed at her aunt's apartment while Clementine was in Europe for the summer 7 years ago, and they get to know each other and a romance unfolds, and there's issues because time gaps and stuff. They both made me cry. The 7-Year Slip was really, really nice book, and it was a lot more about processing grief and how it's okay to accept that, like, it's okay to make changes in your life. Like, you don't have to do everything to honor somebody that you really loved that had passed away, and it's okay to, like, change and stuff. But honestly, I think One Piece is about that too. One Piece also covers those topics. Maybe not it even covers time travel and whatnot as well, huh? One Piece is everything. So I really like the 7-Year Slip, but when I consider the fact that the 2024 chapters that released of One Piece this year, and thinking about whose backstory was revealed this year, and remembering that it made me cry One Piece made me cry for the first time in a very long time. Like, I don't think I had cried post Marineford arc, to be real with you. No, probably in Dressrosa I cried a little bit, because Law's backstory is very sad. The backstory that was revealed this year, holy shit. Holy shit. It's game-changing for the world. It's game-changing for the world. It's game-changing for that character who's always a little mysterious for us. And that turns him into, like, one of the most beloved characters in the entire series, I'm sure. It's so intense emotionally. It had to win. It just had to win. It probably will win every year because One Piece is so emotional. This next book, is this, which one is my next category? Yeah. So this next category is kind of stupid, hence the Stupidest Book Award, but I mean that in a good way. I could have written Silliest Book Award, but it's my time to talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas. I read The Nightmare Before Christmas on my way to Japan, and it was a wild ride. So, and you kind of have to turn your brain off for it. And it probably could be in the world's weirdest world building award if I had one. So, in this world, Christmas and all other holidays are like a secret other world. It's kind of like how, like, what was that movie? Was it Jack Frost or whatever? The one where, like, all of the paragons of the holidays were real and they, like, slowly controlled the world or whatever. That's like this world. Yeah, that's like this world, basically. But this is also like a MLM gay Christmas Halloween book. So the plot, anyway, the Prince of Christmas, Nicholas, and he goes by Cole. This is Cole. He loves Christmas. That is until he realizes that his father has turned the holiday into a capitalist PR scheme. And his father's latest scheme is for Cole to marry his best friend, the Princess of Easter. But they don't like each other. Not like that, and they're like, I mean, I don't really want to do this, but the Princess of Easter is willing to go along with it because it will make her father happy, and Cole is like, well, I guess I have to. Oh, well. But then, the Prince of Halloween shows up on the door of Christmas's house and is like, not so fast, that's not fair. If Easter and Christmas are to combine holidays, then you'll have too much holiday power, and I want a hand at Princess Easter's hand in marriage, too. So now it's like a love triangle thing, but actually this guy, he's the Prince of Halloween. His name is Hex. He actually met Cole like a year ago in like a back alley behind a bar, and they both had like a weird heart to heart, and they couldn't really see each other, and they made out or whatever. And it was like, whoa, really hot. But then they never saw each other again. But now they're seeing each other again. And oh no, Hex is still hot and maybe has the hots for Hex. Or Cole, too. Maybe they both have the hots for each other still. It's so dumb, but it was really fun. It was a really fun read, especially because I was on like a 13-hour plane ride. It's like, let's just read it. And I'm very excited for the sequel to come out that stars Cole's younger brother, Chris, in a book called Go Luck Yourself that obviously involves the Prince of St. Patrick's Day. And then the other book I have is Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kasulki. This book is really silly. It's told entirely in Slack, like as if they were real Slack messages, because Gerald, the main character, has suddenly found his consciousness uploaded into his company's Slack channels, and nobody believes him when he's like, hey, I'm stuck in the Slack channel. I can't come to work today. But nobody believes him. Yeah, because nobody believes him, but they're not complaining about it because his productivity is up like 200% because all he can do is be in Slack. So he gets help from a coworker to try to figure out his predicament, and then even more work drama ensues. And it's a little bit of a horror book, but it's more like an existential horror book in like this weird capitalist world we live in. It's very dumb. It would probably take you like a couple hours. I think I read this book in like 2 hours because it's all just Slack messages, so it's really fast read. It's really dumb. It's really fun. It's really silly. But The Nightmare Before Christmas one's because it's highly entertaining. It's highly, highly entertaining. It's gay Christmas Halloween love, and it's great. I love it. I guess my main complaint about it is that I feel like Hex and Cole are too into each other too fast, but that's okay. Because this is a silly, silly book, and I don't think, because they already made out in a dark alleyway like a year ago, that they were already into each other. I don't really need to be sold into that, you know? Now, my next category is Best New Author. I wasn't sure whether I should do debut authors for 2024 or new authors to me. So, Magical Girl with Tires by Park Seolyeon is a 2024 debut author in American fiction. She has more books out in Korea, but I can't read Korean. Translation State by Anne Leckie is a book that is new to me, but she is also like a prolific sci-fi author. And A Ballad of Perilous Graves by Alex Jennings was a 2023 debut novel, so it is the first novel. And that's just how I made my decisions, I guess. I already talked about Magical Girl Tires. It's a pretty great book. I recommend it. Translation and State by Anne Leckie. This is a story told from 3 perspectives. One is from Kven. He is like a being, are like a being created to be a translator for other races, other societies. Another character is named Rate. They are an adopted mechanic who really wants to find out about his origins. And the other one is Na. They are someone who was just named a diplomat after their grandmother's death, and they were given a very difficult task of finding a fugitive who has been missing for 200 years. And then all these characters' lives interconnect as the mystery opens up into a tale. I found this book to be really well written, despite being like really difficult to convey the topics they were trying to get across. It was really, I wasn't sure if she would pull it off, but she did, and I found that really cool. This book is going to be really boring to a lot of people because they're mostly just talking the whole time, but I found it to be more similar to like a more philosophical episode of Star Trek, and I liked it. The Ballad of Perilous Graves by Alex Jennings was a book club pick of the year, and so I read it very early this year in like January, February, I don't remember. But in this book is great, and it actually won the award, and I'll tell you why after I tell you the premise of the book. So, in a version of New Orleans called Nola, music is magic, and so when the 9 songs of power escape from the magical piano that maintain the city's beat, it's up to Perry, his sister Brendy, and his friend Peaches to save the city. But a storm is brewing, and the Haint of all Haints has awoken. Can Perry find all the songs and save Nola? And so, I chose this book because, one, it wasn't the most perfect book I had ever read. It does have some pacing issues, and it has some plot points it's doing, because it's trying to, so Nola is like magical New Orleans, but there's another perspective in this book that's like actual 2024 New Orleans, and I found that to be really great, but it didn't have a good payoff. Like, the characters are there for a purpose, but then they don't matter in the end, and I didn't love that. But I still found this world to be really awesome. I found it to just be very interesting the whole way around. It was a good mix of feeling very grounded and whimsical at the same time. And when I thought about what author that was new to me that I would want to read the next thing that they publish, as soon as they publish it, it was Alex Jennings. So they win. They win. I am. Please announce the next book, Alex Jennings. I want to read it. So these next couple books, it's like there's just one winner. I don't have multiple books for the category. They just won what they won. So the biggest surprise for me was Shigidi and the Brass Head of Obalufan by Wole Talabi. I'm just going to tell you about this book. So Shigidi is a nightmare god working for the Orisha Spirit Company. He goes and answers the prayers of the greater gods as his job, and he gets just enough spirit to get by. Like, he goes and collects the spirit, but then only some of it is actually his. Like, it mostly goes to the greater gods. One day, while he's on the job, his work is interrupted as he meets Noma. She's like kind of a succubus, and she offers Shigidi freedom for a partnership with her in the human realm. But neither are truly free of the Orisha Spirit Company, as they're required to go fulfill a dangerous task for a god who has recently woken up, and he has big plans to turn the company inside out. And I found this book quite surprising, because normally I'm a bit hesitant to read mythology stories nowadays, because they tend to not work for me as well as they used to. I don't know, like they're trying to reinvent the stories in a way that makes it feel less authentic to how the story was. But I found myself pleasantly surprised in this case, because I just liked it. I liked that all of the gods were not infallible from falling to the corrupt ways of capitalism, and seeing the main characters, despite them being gods, they were also suffering from it. So the effects of capitalism. But also the characters pushing through and actively trying to create a better life for themselves. Like, all the characters are like, this sucks, let's try to do something about it. But some of the characters have different ideas on how to fight capitalism, I suppose, is the answer there. So Shigidi and Noma are not perfect characters. They're both very flawed, but it made them feel very real and relatable despite being intensely powerful beings. And the thing that I found most surprising about this was I saw a lot of reviews for this book saying they didn't like the sexual content of this book. They felt like Noma, because she's basically a succubus, was just there to have sex with other characters. And I just found it weird because, like, okay, it's really obvious that when I was reading the book, I found it quite obvious that Noma is the most powerful character in this book. And I think it's a very shallow interpretation to assume that the author just put her in as a succubus equals sex character box. On the other hand, I completely understand why people wouldn't want to read certain scenes in this book at all. Definitely check the content warnings. Some of it was a bit much, even for me, but I just pushed through and I was happy with it. I just think, honestly, I thought I wouldn't like the book because I thought the sexual content would be too much for me, but it always had a purpose. Like, it was like, unlike, I guess, reading a contemporary romance novel where they're having sex because that's like the culmination of confessing your love or something like that. This was used as like a tool to make the plot move forward, or like to show why certain things had happened, or to explain why Noma acts the way that she does, kinda. And honestly, this book is not perfect for me because it's kind of like a heist book, but then it ended up not being quite about being a heist at all. But I just really love heists, so I was a little sad about it. But I'm really happy I read this book because it was really well crafted and it has a lot to say about like how women are perceived and how capitalism sucks, but it did it in a way that felt very fresh and not like it was beating a dead horse. Like, we all know capitalism sucks, right? But it just, I don't know, it was just really surprising. I definitely think you need to check the content warnings before you pick this book up for yourself, but I did really, really like it. So this next one is a very silly book category. This award is the did not finish that I am the happiest about. This is really petty, but I am so glad I never finished this book. I'm glad I put it down and I never really want to pick it back up again. Very quickly, this story is about, it's Exordia by Seth Dickinson, if you're not watching and you're just listening to me. Sorry about that. Exordia. The story itself is about Anna, a refugee survivor of genocide and now a board office worker in New York. She happens upon an alien in the river, and that alien decides that they're going to go live in her apartment. Something happens. A big old alien disaster happens, and suddenly Anna has to go join a small team of civilian soldiers and scientists to investigate this alien invasion. I thought it would be great because if you can see on the bottom here, it was blurred by Arcadia Martine, my favorite author, and I was like, well, if she likes it, maybe I'll like it. And I didn't. But my issues with the book are so petty. So first, I got the book from the library, but the pages are so thin on the hardcover copy of the book. They're like Bible book thin. Like, they're really, really thin, and they felt awful on my hands to like turn the pages, and I really did not like it, the feel of it, and realizing I needed to read 500 pages of flipping these tiny, really thin pages that I don't like, and I was worried about ripping because it was a library copy, and I chucked it back to the library. I was like, goodbye book, I can't deal with you. So I decided to get the audiobook because I thought, that's fine. Maybe I'll be able to do that. But the audiobook has problems too. So the audiobook narrator is a woman. I don't know if she's actually English British, but she's doing a British accent the whole time. And I think it's because the alien lady is described as sounding like Cate Blanchett, which is totally fine, sure. However, almost all of the characters are American military professionals. They do not have a British accent. They should be sounding way different than the voices that she's making them do. And she wasn't doing any accents for any characters, and it just kind of ruined it for me. And I was like, that is not how an American general sounds. That's just not what he sounds like. And it just took me out of the story, and I just couldn't do it. Both are very petty reasons to not read a book, but because I just had bad experiences with both of them, I decided to not even try the ebook, and I might try to find the paperback if I can find it, and like if I feel like I need to read it later on. But honestly, I'm glad I didn't read this book. I know those are petty reasons, but sometimes I don't think you need a good reason to put down a book. Sometimes it can be as petty as I don't like the audiobook narrator and I don't like the page material. My next silly award, less silly, this is like a general recommendation. The book I most likely to recommend to someone I just met, or broadly recommend as a whole, of the 46 books that I read this year, is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I've talked about Amina a few times on this year already, but I'll talk about it one more time. So Amina is a retired pirate ready to settle into the life of raising her daughter. That is, until she is tracked down by a wealthy mother of a former comrade to go on one final adventure, to track down her missing granddaughter. This book is a grand adventure with really fun, distinct characters. Everyone is lovable to a certain degree, and everyone feels really fleshed out, and I'm really looking forward to the sequel to this book. But for real, it's just a really fun adventure story. It's a really well-written adventure story. I think the first 100 pages for me are a little slow because Amina has to get her band back together. She hasn't been a pirate for like 10 years now, maybe less, and she has to go find her friends, her previous coworkers and friends, and be like, hey, can you meet up with me again? It makes sense why it's slow, but after you get past like the first like 20% of the book, it just takes off. It's just a crazy fun adventure. The story it's telling is very interesting, and if someone were to ask me, like someone random would be like, hey, what book should I read, I probably would say that one if I was limited to everything I read in 2024. Next are more general category. These are all kind of runner-ups. Like the next ones are going to be best romance, best fantasy, best sci-fi. These are all kind of runner-ups. Like I liked all of them, but none of them were like going to win, I guess, my best book of the year. So my best romances are The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rash. I already talked about The 7-Year Slip and A Nightmare Before Christmas, but I will talk about Spell Shop. Spell Shop is a romantasy about Keela and her assistant Kaz, who is a sentient spider plant. They have spent the past decade as librarians within the Great Library of Elysium, which holds a ton of books relating to spells, magic, and more. But suddenly, the two need to flee as a revolution brews in the city, and their home, their library, is set aflame. They take as many books as they can, they get on a boat, and Keela and Kaz have no choice but to return to Keela's island hometown and to try to make a new life for themselves. But will they be able to keep their secret? And are they able to assimilate to small town life? Read more in The Spell Shop. This book was very sweet. I liked it a lot. It is a cozy fantasy that has slightly more stakes than your average cozy fantasy, I think. But at the same time, everything that seems like an obstacle just kind of poofs out of the way. It's like, nah, it wasn't a big deal. You just thought it was a big deal. Except for like the environmental factors, which were never touched upon why the environmental factors were getting so bad. So like the actual problem was just like not addressed. But in any case, it was a fun read. And if you don't like your romance novels to have the spicy factor, there's no sex in that book. But there is romance. The 7-Year Slip I talked already. It's a really, really nice book about an apartment where you can suddenly go 7 years in the past or 7 years in the future. And it's good. And The Night Before Christmas is a really silly book about the Prince of Christmas and the Prince of Halloween falling in love. And the winner is... It's The 7-Year Slip. You probably thought it was Night Before Christmas. It's not. It's The 7-Year Slip. This is like just a really well-written story about how to fall in love while equally about like processing grief and accepting that you're growing up, and like what your dreams are can change with time, and the people around you's dreams can change with time, and that's totally okay. It's about a lot of things, but it's all about the same thing, which is like change is okay. And just really well put together. I really liked it. And it's funny. It has quite a few good funny moments in it. The next category is Best Fantasy. So I actually have 4 for this one because I have a bunch. We have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty, which I just talked about. Moonbound by Robin Sloan. Shigiri and the Brass Head of Abalafon by Wole Talabi. And A Magical Girl Retires by Pak Soyeon. And the winner is... I talked about all these before, so I'm just going to go to the winner. The winner is Moonbound, because to me, it is the most fantasy of fantasy books. Although, I mean, The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi is too, but I just think I liked Moonbound a bit more. It's just, I think, the way that Robin Sloan's brain works, like he cares so much about how people communicate, and not accepting the ancient, like, Arthurian tales for what they are, and really looking deeper into them, but also having a really fun take on, like, what like solar punk technology would look like if it could be real, and also like what it means to be a human. Are like these people that are 13,000 years in the future not people anymore? Are they human? One thing I particularly liked about this book is that there is a third-person narrator, a third-person omniscient narrator, but the third-person omniscient narrator is the artificial intelligent sourdough yeast bacteria thing that attaches to Ariel at the beginning of the book, and their perspective was really fresh and interesting. And also I don't know. It's just really good. This isn't a book I would recommend to anyone, but if the basic premise sounded interesting, I say give it a try. And also Robin Sloan is a really good writer. If anything, even though sometimes I think Robin Sloan struggles with plot, he does not struggle with prose at all. Very, very well written book. Best sci-fi. Two of these books actually I haven't talked about yet today. So I have Translation State by Ann Leckie, Starter Villain by John Scalzi, and These Burning Stars by Bethany Jacobs. So, Starter Villain is a book about Charlie. Charlie is a recently divorced substitute teacher living with his cat in his late parents' home that his siblings want him to move out of so they can sell it. Then, Charlie's long-lost uncle Jake dies, and suddenly Charlie is inheriting his uncle's entire fortune and business, which just so happens to be a supervillain business. Essentially. He is paired with his hyper-intelligent talking spy cat, Hera, and his uncle's late henchperson assistant that I can't remember her name. And Charlie has to attempt to take over the company without losing his own life in the process. And These Burning Stars is a space opera. It is told in 3 perspectives, similar to Translation State, but it's about 3 women, ? I think one of them might be non-binary, I don't remember at this point. They are hunting a carefully hidden secret that could collapse the entire empire that spans multiple star systems. Were built on the bones of genocide. These characters, June, Chono, and Essek, their paths are all intertwined after June finds a piece of contraband that could implicate that one family in the empire is the entire reason for the genocide that happened. And so Chono and Essek are trying to trail after June to get the contraband back so no one can be accused of being the ultimate genocider. But all the while, Chono and Essek are being pursued by someone that they knew earlier in their lives that's clearly pulling the strings behind the scenes. And so I guess the question is, what does this mysterious figure want, and how are they manipulating the outcome of the situation? Like, how are they doing it? Translation State, I already discussed, is pretty great. I really liked what it did. Starter Villain is perfectly fine book. I think John Scalzi's an author I can read, and I'm always going to be like, that was nice. That was nice. They're not super long books. They don't overstay their welcome. They have cute messaging, and cute and good messaging while not being super overly contemplative, I guess. It's still trying to tell an entertaining story. And These Burning Stars was good. I liked it a lot. I felt that some of the plot points were a little convoluted, and it's a little longer than it needed to be. But the twists were very, very satisfying. I did not expect them, and for that, it gets some brownie points there. And I'll probably read the sequel at some point. The winner is... It's Translation State, though. I really think Translation State is what a sci-fi book should be for me. Like, it's discussing what it means to be human, along with a lot of other really deep, I guess, harder topics to define. But it does so in a... for lack of a better word, very human way. I just really liked it. I would not recommend this book to everyone, but if you like books where they just talk about stuff, you might like it. Also, I listened to this on audiobook, and the audiobook narrator does a really good job, so props to her. My next category is probably my favorite, because I'm finally admitting that visual novels are books to me. At least to me, they are. And I'm not going to accept any people telling me I'm wrong. This is my awards ceremony. You can't tell me what to do. So my best otome or visual novel, not all of them. Most of the visual novels I read this year were just otome games, but two of them weren't, but they didn't make the cut. The first one I have is Sympathy Kiss. Sympathy Kiss is a workplace romance type otome. Akari joins a new team at her company after her yearly performance review, but this team is supposed to be reviving an older news app that has fallen behind in recent years. Not only that, but all of Akari's new coworkers are pretty attractive. Will she find true love on this team? Will she figure out what she wants to do in life? Was she only put on this team as an excuse to fire her? Find out more by playing the game. I like this game a lot. It's purely like a self-insert game where the character, like the main character, doesn't actually have a face, but I got over it really fast and I had a good time with it. Some of the stories are a little dramatic, but like I'm playing an Otome visual novel. It's going to be dramatic, but overall I liked it. And then we have Tengoku Struggle Strayside. I haven't been able to put out my full review of this yet because I'm still putting together every single one of my thoughts on this. In this version of Earth on Tengoku Struggle Strayside, there is an agreement between the human realm and the hell realm that Asakusa, the district in Tokyo, will be and was transformed into a tourist attraction where the living can meet the dead. However, one day, the spider's thread, which is like a thing in Buddhist like literature, it was dropped from heaven into hell, allowing several prisoners to escape before their time in hell was up. Thus, King Enma has ordered his Hell Guardian daughter, Rin, but she gets to go to Earth with a few other trustworthy Hell prisoners that have been there for a long time. They have to go to Earth to capture the people who escaped their prison time too early. So this group goes together to the human realm and they have to work together to find out what the ultimate goal of the escapees is, but they also need to increase their bonds with each other to level up their special hell powers that they got after they died. It's really hard to describe in just a few sentences, like what this plot is, which is why I'm making a full review of it, of course. I was going to do it regardless, but it needs the full review, but it's a grand journey. It's a grand journey. And then the last one is My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom, Pirates of the Disturbance, also known as Hamefuda. Hamefuda is based on the light novel that also has a manga and anime adaptations. So the series stars Katarina Claes, a woman born in nobility who has memory of her past life as a high school student on Earth. She was reborn as Katarina, the villainess in an Otome game. But in the game, exile or death was all that awaited Katarina. So this new Katarina did everything in her power to prevent this from happening. She successfully evades those endings. She made it to spring break, and that's where this game starts, where she's going on a cruise vacation that all of her friends also just happen to be going on too. But the ship is quickly attacked by pirates, leading to more situations Katarina has to get herself out of. A very fun game. If you liked the manga, the light novel, or the anime, you would likely really like this. It's lighthearted, it's fun, it's fresh. The voice acting is great. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints about it, honestly. I guess sometimes the pacing was boring in some routes, like poor Alan, his route kind of sucked, but otherwise, it was pretty good. And so the winner is, and unfortunately, I don't have a full review of this out, so I can't talk into it 100%, but it's Tengoku Struggle Strayside. There's just something so pervasive and deep about this world and what stories they're trying to tell that I really gotta write it all down on paper and then tell you all of it, because it was just really good. Like all these characters, like they went to hell after dying because they did bad things, but were those bad things justified? Were they not justified? What justifies being put into prison? Is the prison system a good idea? It covers a lot of topics, and it does it pretty well. There is some content that could potentially be triggering to some people, so I definitely recommend looking up content warnings before starting this game, but I didn't have any problem with it. And I think this guy right here, his name is Sharaku, he's my favorite guy. But I don't have an award for best guy of the year, so so that's all I'm gonna say there. The next one is probably my favorite category that I came up with, and that is most meh book of the year. It's the most book where it should have been good, but instead it was just meh. Most meh. And so the contenders for this, or the nominees for this category, are The Employees by Olga Raven, Dragonfruit by Makia Lucier, and The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandrasekhara. The Employees is an epistolary novella told in the form of voice recordings from a spaceship. The spaceship has just recently taken on a number of weird objects they found on a planet they recently went to, and suddenly the entire crew is deeply enamored and attached to these deep objects, these weirdo objects. On the ship, there are humans and humanoids, so there's like already a rift between what is a human and what does it mean to be alive. But as they grow their bonds with these weird objects, the rift gets even greater and more serious, and the fate of the crew, it wanes. And then I have dragon fruit. So dragon fruit is this was a book club pick, actually, so if you read it, cool, thanks. I'm happy you did. Hanale has been living in exile ever since her father stole a sea dragon egg meant for the island kingdom's princess to save. He stole it to save his daughter Hanale's life instead. Years later, Hanale receives the chance to return home one day after an encounter with a pregnant sea dragon. Then she reunites with her childhood friend and son of the princess, Sam, who wants the same thing Hanale does. They want a sea dragon egg to save his mother from her years-long magical coma. And so they team up, and the story goes from there. Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandrasekhara. So this book is about divine revolutionaries and transcendent cults fighting against the mundane struggles of a modern life. Feder was raised to kill by his mother growing up. Specifically, he was raised to kill his dad, but Feder doesn't want to do that. He does not have any interest in doing that. He escapes to the big city, where his divine destiny is more mundane than fantastical. Feder joins group therapy, but actually the group therapy is just a recruitment for a revolutionary group, and there are also magical doors in this world that seem to be looming portals that no one can enter. So how can Feder navigate the world trying to be a normal dude when even his spam emails seem to be beckoning him for a life of greater glory and divineness? Olga Raven's The Employees just didn't do enough. Like, it was so, it took me really long, even though it was a novella, it was like 100 pages long, and this book took me so long to read because I didn't care what was happening. Like, it was just so obvious. Anyway, the winner of this category is actually The Employees by Olga Raven, because I was convinced that this book should have been my favorite book of the year, and then it was boring. And then it was boring. It wasn't bad, it was just boring. So it won. Now, before I get to my best book of the year, obviously I need to have an award category for the worst book of the year. So, actually a visual novel is worst book of the year. So I have Faebound by Saara El-Arifi. I have Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. And I have Virche Evermore, which is an Otome visual novel. So I've already talked about Faebound. Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh is about Kier. Kier was raised on a space station alongside the last of humankind. Kier was trained for a day she can avenge the murder of Earth. Kier is one of the best warriors of her generation and plans to be a sword for her people, but all of her dreams are whisked away as she is assigned baby making instead of freedom fighting. That's what she wants to do for her future. And then her brother is sent off on a death mission, leaving Kier all alone on the space station. Kier then enlists the help of her brother's nerdy friend and an alien captive to escape her fate and to find her brother, opening Kier's worldwide imagination into a universe more complicated than she could have ever imagined. Virche Evermore. This Otome visual novel takes place on an island surrounded by black spider lilies of misfortune. The misfortune, to be more specific, is that everyone born on this island is cursed to die by the age of 23. The people of this country hate their short lives, and so scientists have created a way to download the memories of bodies before the age of 23 and then install them into like a clone after the body perishes, thus leading to longer lives. Meanwhile, the main character, Ceres, is referred to as Death by the people of the island, as everyone she encounters dies well before the age of 23, when the curse is supposed to consume them. This sucks, and Ceres wants to die to prevent any more death from happening around her, but before she can unalive herself, the Watchman of Death appears before her and offers her a deal. Okay, so Faebound is pretty bad. We're gonna get to that soon. Some Desperate Glory could have been good. It never gives the main character... So Kira is horrible. Kira is not someone that you want to like at the beginning of this book, and I think that that's a perfectly fine way to write a book. It's fine to have the main character be really unlikable at first, so long as they can learn from their mistakes and like actually reflect on it and grow as a person. But the plot moves so fast that Kira doesn't really have a chance to do that, and so she never really understands why what she was doing was wrong. She just understands that she needs to, like, the revenge that she needs to get is like different than what she thought it was. She needed to direct her anger in a different direction, and I don't know, it was just really weird. I would read another book by Emily Tesh because I think that she can do better. I just found it deeply unsatisfying. I didn't like it. It won the Best Hugo Award of the Year. That's fine. Whatever. Clearly it's subjective and a lot of people did like it. I just did. Virche Evermore is bad because it's just... Okay, so I actually think if you're someone that likes to read things that are sad and depressing all the way through and make you feel all the sad feels, you will like Virche Evermore. Error Salvation is the full name. But if you don't, it's just going to feel like torture porn to you. And that's really what the game felt like to me in the end. There are some parts of this game that I thought were really well written. There are many parts of this game that I thought were really well written, but I would have liked only one of these. Like, there's 5 routes, 6 routes, I don't remember, in this game, and I would like one of them to be in a different Otome visual novel, and then have the rest be, like, less dark. They're all so dark. Everyone suffers so much, especially Lucas. Poor Lucas. Poor every single one of these characters, actually. Everyone deserves, like, an AU game where everything is nice, and everyone gets cake and ice cream and flowers. and not any of the suffering that happened in this game. I just really did not enjoy it because of that. But I know a lot of people really love it, and all the power to you. But the winner is Faebound. This book made me so angry reading this book. One, it is not well written. I'm sorry, it is not well written. Sometimes the grammar in this book doesn't make any sense, and I just was like, I guess I'm just going to roll with it. I'm just not going to complain about it. The plot was incredibly predictable to the extent where the book felt a little pointless to read. I don't think it's bad to write a story where the reader knows what will inevitably happen in the plot, but the whole prophecy thing took the joy of figuring out what will happen on my own, and instead I just felt like I was waiting for the plot to fall into place. This novel is advertised also as being a romantasy. Please don't read this book if that is what you are seeking. The romance has very, very little build-up between the main characters and the love interests, and they are suddenly totally all over each other. I'm all for characters having instant chemistry, but it just doesn't feel good. It just didn't feel good to read. The world building seems cool at a glance, but if you poke it even a little bit, it falls apart. I'm not sure why the duo MCs were elves when they had no characteristics of why being an elf set them apart, other than the fact that it was like the race that they were, and that they could do prophecy telling. But as I mentioned before, I think the prophecy telling made the plot actively worse. This book was readable, but I really didn't like it. This book made me very angry, and I received it as a gift, and so I felt like I had to read it all the way through. But I did tell that person that it was a bad book, and they were like, oh. Oh well. They didn't care, but that's okay. I mean, I was happy to receive it as a gift because I did have it on my radar to read at some point this year, so yeah, sorry. It was really bad. Sorry to all that genuinely liked it. I think we read different books. So these are all the other books I read this year. I think I'm missing like 2 books, but it's fine. All these books are fine. I liked them all enough. Actually, I really didn't like North by Northwest, but it's fine. Whatever. This Spells Love also kind of sucked, but not enough to win an award for sucking. And the rest are fine. And I actually put this up here because we're going to have a quiz soon. Just so you know, there's a quiz coming up. So my runners-up for my best book of 2024 are A Magical Girl Tires by Park Seolyeon, One Piece by Oda Eiichirou, and Moonbound by Robin Sloan. So these are all books that I really liked. Magical Girl Tires is a magical girl book. Why wouldn't I like it? One Piece is One Piece. One Piece has become like a chunk, like a third of my brain. So of course I like it. And Moonbound was a really, really lush magical tale that I really enjoyed. But the best book of the year, I guess this best series of the year, was Delicious in Dungeon. Ultimately, it came down to Dungeon Meshi. I thought about it long and hard, and I was like, what's the thing what did I have the most fun reading? What did I have, I don't know, the best, like, experience with? What is still, like, something that I'm thinking about even now? And the answer is Delicious in Dungeon. It's just really good. I would highly recommend you read the manga, even if you are waiting for the anime adaptation, because I think I watched the anime adaptation at the same time I was reading Dungeon Meshi, and it was wonderful. It was just, like, better. It's like rereading it on page and then seeing it. And the thing is, One Piece could have won, but I just thought, I was like, nah, Dungeon Meshi wins this year. It's Dungeon Meshi. I think that One Piece will probably be on my runners-up, or maybe it will win next year. I think it'll be on my runners-up no matter what, as long as it's being released, because I really like One Piece now. And I did genuinely like the Magical Girl Tires and Moonbound too, but when I thought long and hard about it, I thought, no, it's gotta be Delicious in Dungeon. I don't know, I don't really have anything else to say. I just think it's the best, and I think you should read it. Now, it's time for a quiz! Were you paying attention, everyone? Were you watching the screen? I have a question for you. What do you think the most common color, or what color I read the most books of? Like, what was the most common color book that I picked this year in 2024? There is a definitive answer. When I was doing the tallies, I thought that I had a tie, and I was going to be like, haha, trick question, but it's not. There's a definitive answer. Okay, I'm going to reveal the answer. All right, the answer is, it's blue. The answer is blue. Thank you everyone for participating. I will read you the stats for real. There were 9 blue books that I read, 8 green books, 7 red, 5 pink, 4 black, 4 brown, 3 purple, 3 yellow, 2 gray books, 1 orange book, and I read 0 white books this year as the predominant color. Yeah, and there were, every time there was a book where I wasn't sure what the predominant color was, I asked my friend that's a graphic designer, and so if you don't agree with what they decided, then you can go yell at them. Not that you know who they are, but... Wow, you watched so far, you made it to this outro, thank you so much. I know it was like an hour-long award ceremony video thing, and that's a lot of your time, so thank you very much for making it here. Wow. It was a rough year, honestly. 2024 was for reading, and also just me doing anything that I wanted to in life, much like 2023 was, but I had a lot more reading time that year. Going forward, I'm actually starting a year-long reading project where I asked everyone that follows my Twitch channel, everyone that follows me on Twitter and elsewhere, and like Blue Sky, you know, what books they think I should read, whether it's like a cursed book, a good, like something they think is a really good book, any kind of book they think that they would recommend to other people, good or bad. And so I took basically all of those examples, and I have started my book project. So if you're interested in the book project, I will link the first video in my description box. The second video, I'm going to like actually discuss how I'm going to be doing this whole project. I was just so excited to draw my first book. I give a very, very brief explanation, draw the book, and now I'm currently reading it. So if you want to know what that book is, go ahead and watch the video. Otherwise, I don't know. I'll see you soon. I probably maybe if you watch the video. I don't know what to say here. Like and subscribe. Have a Happy New Year!